Hi, welcome to Video Film Snobs. I'm Brian Michael.
And I'm Angela Yeager. You saw a clip at the top of the show for our first movie this week, which is Blade Runner 2049, in which LAPD Officer K, played by Ryan Gosling, unearths a secret about replicants that threatens the very nature of existence. And it leads him on his search to Deckard, played by Harrison Ford, a former Blade Runner that you might remember from Ridley Scott's 1980s classic. This particular version of Blade Runner is not version, it's not a remake, it is a sequel way after the first one, both in real time as well as set into the future in 2049. And it's directed by Denis Villeneuve. Oh boy, how do you say his name?
Oh, you messed it up.
I was almost had it. I was right on the tip. Villeneuve.
There you go.
Yeah.
Come
anyway,
on,
I'll just say it fast. Great director. Has directed movies like Prisoners, Sicario, Arrival, several, Incendies. Thank you. And of course the cinematography by Roger Deakins, which I thought was one of the highlights of the film. It is a big picture movie that demands to be seen on the big screen. There's just one stunning image after another, and I enjoyed Ryan Gosling as the replicant. He is supposed to be, one thing that's hard though is as the lead character, he's very he doesn't have a lot of emotion because he's supposed to be a replicant. So you're kind of following this main character who isn't, extremely expressive. We have a wonderful, as usual, too small part by Robin Wright as his boss in the LAPD. And then a very, it's almost a cameo of sorts by Ford, who brings a little bit of the Shaggy Dog element to the movie, a little humanistic feeling, so to speak. And Jared Leto in what I thought was probably the most unnecessary part of the movie that you could have actually, and I was talking about this with Brian Knoll actually, that I felt like you could have just cut his scenes out and the movie would have been fine. I don't think it would have made any difference whatsoever.
Keep going, because it's 2 hours and 45 minutes. We can cut Harrison Ford out of this movie too. I think Harrison Ford is fine in this movie. He feels like he actually cares about the paycheck he's getting in this movie, but it really wasn't necessary because at the point in time they bring him in like 2 hours into the movie, and at that point in time I'm so invested with Ryan Gosling and the cinematography, which is, the set design and cinematography in this film are just the wet dreams of other other movies and set designs. They're absolutely amazing. The offices, when they go into those offices, every time they went in, I sat next to Scott, and I went, oh my gosh. And I was like, that is the most non-functional office building I've ever seen, but it is so amazing inside. It's beautiful. And some of the water reflection, the cinematography is just absolutely amazing. I do wish they had a couple of noir scenes from the original, because the original one is such a visual epic, and it's just, just to have a little bit of rain in there and some smoke and just.
Well, this movie has a lot of water. There's the scene with the window panes with Robin Wright.
But I wish
very watery and snowy.
I wish they had a little bit more of that, because I really love the noir look of the original one. But Harrison Ford, by the time we get to him, I didn't care about Deckard anymore, and I wasn't all invested in the original character to begin with, and I loved the first film, but I was way into Ryan Gosling's performance here. He's done this before with Drive, which is the film I absolutely loved. I loved all the, his character, his AI that he had, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. And I really was just loving that. And then it gets into, when Harrison Ford gets in, then it slows down. And then there's an action sequence at the end that goes on way too long. And I didn't really care about that part of it. And then,
with the replicant?
Yeah, I didn't.
I actually don't agree, because I actually thought Harrison Ford at that point invests, because if he wasn't in there, the whole search that Ryan Gosling has, that I don't want to give away for those who haven't seen it. It could have been just about himself. Well, no, because it's very important, because he believes something about himself that is very important with the Harrison Ford character in terms of the connection there. When he first sees him,
that's not how he finds out. That's not how he finds out. He finds out later through the
but after he's already met it. But that whole interaction they have, he's thinking he's interacting with someone that's very close to him. And that was, to me, a key emotional scene, unlike the scenes with Jared Leto, which offered nothing. He's not even particularly interesting bad guy like Rutger Hauer in the first one. Chewed it up appropriately at least and made like a good, interesting bad guy. Jared Leto is.
I see Leto as the bad guy or anything.
He was supposed to be the bad guy.
Exposition guy that came in
wanting to create slaves, but he's so like talking highfalutin, and he seems so inactive. He's just not. He's just not very good. But I still really I can recommend the film. I don't think it's a 4-star movie, unfortunately. It just had enough sort of little holes and things where I thought, wait, what about why? So there's like this leader of this rebellion group, the replicant rebellion group. She essentially has the same goal as Jared Leto's character. They both want the replicants to be able to recreate. That's not giving away too much. they both have the same goal, but they're both trying to kill each other. So I'm like, okay. There's just little things as I started thinking about the movie more that kind of bothered me.
The thing with this director, though, as much as I lived in Cindy's, and I think I gave it The Arrival 4, I gave it 3.5, it always seems like with Sicario or Prisoners, it's a really amazing thing. It gets all the way through, but then by the time at the end, I'm like, there's just something missing. And this one just didn't, it felt a little ballooned. It just was a little too much. It just needed to just pull it in a little bit, because the original and first part of the story, what the original, what he was trying to find, I thought was fascinating. We didn't need to have something else added on.
Yeah, I feel like it could have been a 2-hour movie, maybe
totally.
2 hours and 20. But you could easily chop 20
Jared
minutes
Leto
off.
and Harrison Ford just go bye-bye in the movie, and it works down. It works down to about 2 hours.
And Ryan Gosling is very good. You're right. He has a tendency. Fantastic. He can do things like Blue Valentine, where he's much more emotive, much more emotional. I like him in those kind of roles personally. This is much more like Drive. That was a good mention, where he's much more cool and kind
just
of
with his AI and going around the house and trying to be normal. I love that.
Right.
That was so fantastic. I love that.
Yeah. I would have liked more of Robin Wright and more interesting female characters. I felt like this one was sort of lacking that compared to the first one, where at least you had Sean Young.
Oops, you're not watching a repeat, everybody. This is a new episode. It's just Angela says that every week.
That we
I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's true.
We're only more than half of the population. Why not have some interesting characters?
I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying there weren't that many. Robin Wright was probably the most interesting.
Is that the part of the drinking game now? Is that the new drinking game?
Shut up. You're over talking me. You're mansplaining and talking over me. So you can shut up now.
So, oh boy, let's move on to a movie that has a female protagonist in the movie. Let's look at the clip for Victoria and Abdul. Okay, so that's a clip from Victoria and Abdul. This stars, of course, Dame Judi Dench as Queen Victoria in her later years. And she actually catches the eye, or I should say a young man from India who is there to present her with a coin, catches her eye, and a friendship of sorts begins. It's a friendship, yeah. Well, it is a friendship. I don't know if she wanted more, but it's certainly a friendship. I have a one-word review for this movie. It's cute. There you go. I mean, I liked this movie. I mean, it's the mildest of recommends, because I do love Judi Dench. There's a lot of great.
It's the Judi Dench show. Let's not be.
There's a lot of great looks and glances and close-ups from her that it could really be a silent film. She could easily, with just the look of her eye, just the way she eats, communicates volumes and volumes. I absolutely just love watching her. It's an okay movie, I kind of liked it. Yeah, I mean, this is the mildest of, just the barely.
I mean, there's some good laughs in it. It's a light movie. Yes. There's some scenes of her eating, and everyone has to, they have their plates taken away when the queen is done, and she is a fast eater.
Yeah.
So she's shoveling the food in, and other people are just getting started, and then their plates are taken away, and you see them going, oh, my soup gone, and then the next course comes out, and she shoves it down, and they're like, oh, and then that one's gone. Little things like that were nice. Yeah. That's not enough for me to recommend it, unfortunately. Yeah. It's just too problematic, and I know, you're going to be like, oh, here we go with Angela and her political stuff again, but the whole romanticization of colonialism in this film is really problematic. Yeah. I really wish they'd given us more of the character of Abdul. I mean, the actor who plays him, Ali Fazal, is very handsome and very striking and a good actor. No, it's his
friend who actually says things. These are our oppressors. These are the people that are, well, these
Abdul
are the enemy.
is more of a, I mean, they call him an Uncle Tom sort of at one point, and he's definitely more sympathetic to the monarchy, shall we say. We don't really know why. We don't get a backstory on him. He's Muslim, and we don't really know why he has this fascination with the monarchy and loves the queen so much, and why he's so fascinated with her. I mean, we obviously see why she's fascinated with him, because she learns a lot from him, and he's very kind to her, and he treats her more of as an equal, which she really likes, in a way. But we don't really know why he
worships her. I think that she also likes the fact that he worships her in a way that the others are just like, oh, this old lady won't die.
Yeah. Well, he respects her intelligence and actually, is teaching her things. And I liked that element of it to a certain degree. But the side character, I think, in some ways, his friend, is the more interesting character, because he's the one challenging everything. But at some point, he's just sort of played for, like, comic effect, like he's making fun of the English food. And you're supposed to laugh when he says the English are barbarians. You're supposed to laugh because it's supposed to be the opposite. Like, that's a joke for a white audience, and that really bothered me, even though I laughed. But when he says that, I thought, we're supposed to be joking. We're laughing at that because we're supposed to think Indian food is exotic. And it's like, no, from his perspective of that character, he probably really would think that. So it's just very disappointing coming from a director like Stephen Frears, who used to make great movies. If you've never seen My Beautiful Laundrette.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he used to make High Fidelity. I mean, he used to make great movies, and now he's making like kind of puff, like, you know, it's funny, her favorite thing to eat was these kind of like puffed pastries, and that's sort of what this movie is. So.
Yeah, it's just a step above a TV movie.
Yeah. And
just because she's in it. If it was anyone
Dench,
else in there, of a lesser actress, then it would have been like a Lifetime movie.
Yeah, if it was not Judi Dench. This is just like someone was like, let's just write a movie about Judi Dench and she'll play Queen Victoria again. Actually, Mrs. Brown is a better movie than this, I would say, which is her playing Queen Victoria earlier. So anyway, so two stars for me.
Okay. So we're gonna move on to his distinguished classics. That's the list I put together. This week's is 1950's The Asphalt Jungle, directed by John Huston. I don't know. I've made a few movies like The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure Sierra Madre. I have to actually look and see what movies he made. He also made Moby Dick. This tells a story about a major heist that is actually put together by several criminals, obviously, when they just recently got out of prison, who's a mastermind, and they put together this heist, and the heist goes off with a few problems there, but then there's some backstabbing and things kind of unravel from there. What's really interesting is that most films, and not to put any other films down, like, you know, Ocean's 11, usually the main part of the thing is the heist. This is just kind of talked about. They do it. It's kind of matter of fact, and then it's very tense. I thought it was really great because they talk about there's a sensor. It's an eye. They have to go under and slide under. And I kept thinking, when are you going to get the little can of smoke or the mist or the hairspray?
Yeah, this isn't a James Bond movie. They didn't have that kind of
technology. No, they don't do that. And then there's a shooting there that kind of causes complications, and then it's just all about who can hold it together, who can keep their mouth shut,
who's backstabbing whom, and
it's great. It's got some absolutely fantastic dialogue written certainly with John Ford and W.R. Burnett. W.R. Burnett who wrote the High Sierra
John
and
Ford,
the Great.
John Ford?
Excuse me, John Huston, and The Great Escape. Excuse me.
It's like, why is John Ford involved with this
but
movie?
I love the dialogue. I could actually listen to the dialogue the
great.
entire time. It's got Lewis Calhern as well as Sterling Hayden and Marilyn Monroe in a small
very
role.
Small part. Unlike when you see the poster to the movie, which is Marilyn Monroe.
She's
in it
plastered
like
all
5
over
minutes.
it. But it's a great movie to see. Whether if you're a Marilyn Monroe fan, you're accidentally going to see a great movie. It's a wonderful film.
It's
really
fantastic.
Thoroughly enjoyed this film.
And it's a very unusual role for Sterling Hayden. He was in a lot of 50s movies. Unfortunately, you know, got a bad reputation. Not unfortunately they got a bad reputation. Unfortunately, he was one of the people that was a whistleblower with the blacklist and told on people and etc. But he was often cast as like a cop or, you know, a kind of a good guy, like patriotic, rough guy. In this film, he's like the same kind of guy.
Yeah.
But he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
But there aren't really any good guys in this movie, if you think about it. There's no, he's the closest thing to it, and he's like a criminal that roughs people up. And I loved that about it, actually.
He has a man with a code, and I always appreciate that, and certainly that's usually what he usually kind of plays. Even when he's a cop, sometimes he's a little bit, he still
like
roughs
him
people
and the
up
German guy are maybe the closest thing to being, I mean, I don't know if they're sympathetic, but they're like the smartest and kind of on the ball and the most honest for criminals, in that they've decided they're going to do this crime, and they're going to do it by the book, and it's all these other people that sort of mess things up, including Lewis Calhern, you know, who we've seen in quite a few other films, who plays the older man, businessman, who kind of funds the whole enterprise, but definitely is a very shady character. And you mentioned Jean Hagen, who plays the girl who's got a thing for Sterling Hayden, and of course was in Singing in the Rain, very famously. And she's great in this.
She's fantastic, absolutely fantastic in this. You know, with Lewis Calhern, though, when we looked him up, because I thought, gosh, I've seen that guy so many times. He was in Notorious, of course, he was one of the goons in that, and then he was also in Duck Soup. So I mean, this is a guy with fantastic range. I've seen his face in so many different films.
Didn't we see him in something else recently? Oh yeah, The Life of Emile Zola, which we're reviewing in a future episode. But
But
he
he's
appeared, and we're like,
absolutely fantastic in that. But you know, the great lines of dialogue. His head is all knuckles, which still makes me laugh.
His head is all knuckles.
I don't
but
trust
you
him
in that 50s.
I don't trust him like a left-handed pitcher. They have a screw loose. I mean, that kind of stuff. I absolutely love that. Of course, it's a very noir film. It's very tense. The heist itself is very tense. Even though it's very simple, I really appreciated what they were able to do.
And not a wasted scene. Very economical, short and sweet.
Yep.
And for film buffs out there, there's a great French film from 1955, Rafifi, which is a fantastic movie,
Oh,
which is sort of, it's very similar to this. I don't think it's a remake per se, but it's very similar. It's about a small group of crooks that go and do a heist, and then everything goes.
Breaking through that floor,
and that's a fantastic movie too. So
that's amazing. Great double feature there.
Oh man, I'm gonna want to watch it right now. Okay, so we'll move on. We have a new segment on the show. Yay, this is one Brian came up with. I'll give him credit.
Oh, look at that.
It's called the Film Snobs 5, where we come up with 5 of anything that we like. Just pick 5. And and this is in honor of Blade Runner coming out. We decided to do top 5 dystopian movies. And so do you want to go back and forth, or should I just list my 5? Or
Let her rip.
Okay, so I'm going to list my top 5. I had a really hard time with this. You know, when you start compiling this,
flipping great category.
this is a genre that has a lot of great movies. So I had a hard time, and I don't know if I even would say these are my favorite ones, but I wanted to pick kind of a variety, so that's partially why I did this. So Metropolis is my first pick, which is a very early film and really one of the earliest dystopian futures, if you think about it.
Great
the slaves underground, and in a way, a movie like Blade Runner owes a lot to Metropolis in terms of its look at this futuristic society. Brazil, which is just cannot be beat. Of course, you brought it up, which I didn't realize that it was a bomb when it first came out.
Huge bomb.
Probably like all of Terry Gilliam's films in a lot
So
of
someday
ways.
they'll make a $150 sequel to it and then be like disappointed. Why didn't it do well? Because the first one bombed and only the cult fans will go to it and bring a couple of their friends.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. But it's a great film. And talk about dystopian. It's still, and anyone who works in an office and a bureaucracy to this day, it still really hits home
Those
with
pneumatic
its
tubes.
with its there's stuff that's very dated too, but there's some just great scenes in this.
Fantastic.
Very dystopian, also with a comedic edge as well. My next one is Gattaca. I couldn't believe I have an Ethan Hawke movie on here, but there you go. But this is a really, still to this day, sort of underrated, underseen film with Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman in one of one of the first performances where I thought Ethan Hawke was really great, and in a way, a futuristic type movie that is, to this day, still some of the themes in it has. It's futuristic, so it's sci-fi. Some of these are sci-fi, some of them aren't. Dystopian doesn't have to be sci-fi, though.
No.
It could be set in, back, like Mad Max movies are, which I'm sure you'll talk about. And Children of Men, which is one I own and have seen over and over again, and I think is just a masterpiece. That one is a personal favorite. I just can't say enough about that film. If you've never seen it, or it's been a long time since you've seen it, watch it again. It's really worth watching.
It's getting a little more play on TV recently, I've noticed.
Is
well.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was one I don't think was a big hit when it came out, but I think, but it did get released in mainstream theaters.
Yes.
I remember seeing it, and it really should have been, but I think it was almost a little too smart for some people.
Yeah.
And then finally, my 5th one, that was only 4.
Oh, there was 4.
Yes, is Wall-E, and I think Aaron also picked that one of our crew members. And it was funny when I was bringing this up to when I was brainstorming, and I was telling my husband, I'm trying to say, I was like, well, is Wall-E dystopian because it's kind of happy? But he's like, yeah, no, that's pretty dystopian, although some of it still kind of feels true. Yeah, it's like very, with the garbage piling up, and then the other world, and, all the people in their bubbles. Yeah, it's definitely pretty dystopian. It just is it's, the rare family-friendly movie that's dystopian.
I absolutely love that film.
So yours.
So I did mine in categories because I always complicate things. So at my number 5 spot, I had a comedy. I was like, let's just try to find a comedy in a dystopian future. So Demolition Man is one of them that certainly comes with the Sylvester Stallone movie with Wesley Snipes. Is so much fun. But my pick would be Sleeper, Woody Allen's early comedy classic. It's absolutely fantastic.
Which was also one of my picks.
Really funny. Correct. Number 4, I had comic book movies because I wanted to have something that applied more to today's audiences, because people don't think of them as dystopian. Something like X-Men, Days of Future Past, but my pick certainly would be The Watchmen, which I loved ever so much.
And I still hate that movie.
You still hate it. For an action film, of course, you can't beat Mad Max. There's The Road Warrior, but certainly Mad Max Fury Road, which I just think is an absolute masterpiece. I don't care if it was just a recent film. There's just no topping that film. Really, if it was the only film that survived in film history, I would be like, well, that's okay. That's not so bad. Then let's see, what was I? Then number 2, I had a classic. Certainly, you mentioned Metropolis. I went with Clockwork Orange, Stanley Kubrick film.
Almost there with that one.
Yeah, that is it's a great look at the future and how people are just ever so happy. And then there's this underworld that's
definitely dystopian.
And it's a fantastic film and beautifully made, and I just absolutely love that.
And I would say that's
film.
one that's not really sci-fi-ish. It's more of just pure
But
dystopia.
when you say dystopian, aside from the Mad Max movies, I always go to Blade Runner and think of the noir picture, because it was such a great spin on that. So my pick for the noir would be, certainly Blade Runner is one of them, but Dark City.
Oh, yeah.
Alex Proyas' absolute masterpiece. What happened to Alex Proyas? It is an absolutely fantastic film. Every shot of that movie is absolutely beautiful. It's a great story. It's very smart. The Matrix stole from it, and I just absolutely love that film. So now we have we got some feedback from our Facebook page.
Yes, we posted on the Real Film Snobs Facebook page and asked for other people, for all of you out there, to weigh in on your favorite dystopian movies. So we got a lot of good feedback, so this is a lot of fun. So I'll go ahead and read these off. So Abby King said 12 Monkeys, which is another Terry Gilliam. The Road, Never Let Me Go, District 9, Children of Men, Looper, Delicatessen, City of Lost Children, and Zombieland. Zombieland's actually, you know, I was thinking about that later, like a lot of zombie movies.
And that's a funny, that's a funny film.
Yeah, Jill Honstein said The Road, and she loved the atmosphere of that, and Children of Men. Chris Huntington, Never Let Me Go. Again with that one. That one made a lot of lists. And I have never seen it. I will admit it now. It's because of Keira Knightley. You know about my Keira Knightley thing. I try to avoid movies with her like the plague. But now I feel like I should watch it. So Chris said this movie is on his top 10 of all time, and I would watch Carey Mulligan read the phone book. I do like Carey Mulligan, so maybe I should give it a chance. And then said Children of Men, 12 Monkeys are close seconds. Gattaca would be an honorable mention. Raul said 28 Days Later, Mad Max Fury Road, AI. Snowpiercer, except for that ending, AI. Anyway, we won't get me going on the ending of AI again. The Matrix, X-Men, Days of Future Past, Battle Royale, which is a really good one. Children of Men, Minority Report, and Gattaca.
Snowpiercer, that's the one that was really close. And every time you'll say The Road, I go, ugh, because that movie was
really depressing,
kick in the gut. Oh, it's a great film, but
yeah. Arlenia, or I hope I'm saying her name right. Sorry if I'm not. Arlenia, maybe it's Arlenia, said Bicentennial Man, which I have not seen.
That's a Robin Williams movie. Ooh. I will never see it.
Okay. Well, we know you have a thing about but Teresa Hogue said District 9 and Fifth Element and Serenity.
Yep, Serenity was on my list.
That you didn't make, Didn't make it. Carmen. Thank you, Carmen. Serenity, Waterworld, I Am Legend.
Waterworld. Awesome.
The Fifth Element, Book of Eli, Aeon Flux. Ooh, I have to talk to Carmen about that one later. Ultraviolet, Babylon AD, Battlefield Earth. I think John Travolta is doing a skipping dance right now that anyone watched Battlefield Earth. I can't say I've ever seen it. I've never seen it, so I can't judge.
It's so much fun to watch.
Johnny Mnemonic, Oblivion, and Wall-E. Shane Murphy said Minority Report. That made a lot of lists. I actually thought that would make yours.
You know it probably had. I should have put it in my action one. Now that I thought about it, but the Road Warrior ones were hard to kick out.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, Minority Report, it's a genius.
Aaron Marvin, who's a member of our crew here. Yeah, he's right there behind your camera. Said so many good dystopian films. Favorites: Wall-E, Children of Men, Looper. Another one for Looper, District 9, and the recent Mad Max. So, yeah, that got several votes. Marguerite Sock said A Scanner Darkly. That was another one that almost made 9. I love that movie. 12 Monkeys, the original Blade Runner, Fifth Element, and Snowpiercer. Sarah Evans said Moon, Metropolis, Wall-E, and the original Matrix. I would argue on Moon.
Moon, I know. I have seen that.
I thought about this. If it's something that's taking place in outer space, but is it dystopian? Is it just a sci-fi
Well, no,
movie?
they're not, because nothing is bad happening at Earth. I always thought it was like something bad happening. Or that
I know.
Was
We'd have to
Earth,
look at the definition of dystopian.
Or that it was like a high society and a really... some people were living in total
that's a great movie. I love the movie. I'm not sure
if
it's dystopian or not, but Metropolis, Wall-E, and Matrix are. So good job, Sarah. Brian Knoll said Gattaca. So Brian Hart, Clockwork Orange. Mick Hickman, The Road. Chris Hagen said Thinking About It because of the Noble, but Never Let Me Go. So another vote for that one. Adam Gallardo, this was an interesting choice that I saw on some other lists online. A Boy and His Dog. I've never seen it, but I've heard a lot of people talk about it. It's kind of a cult one.
Is that the Mel Gibson one?
I don't know, but it was on quite a few like underrated lists that I found online. Death Race 2000 and The Road Warrior.
Oh, yeah.
And The Road Warrior. Melissa Kreutz Gallardo said Children of Men. Katie Ellen Ferrier, my favorites are City of Lost Children, good. The Postman, not so good. But Katie Ellen and I have had many conversations about her love of The Postman before, so she knows how I feel about it.
So it sounds like Children of Men.
We have one more. Lala Falala, who that's not her real name, not shockingly, but I won't give it away what her real name is, but she said Showgirls, which I just thought was funny. I think she was just being funny. Yeah. But I would say that, if I didn't count it up, but I would say Children of Men got a lot, The Road Warrior, and Mad Max Fury Road got a lot of mentions as well. So
as it should.
And The Road Road, actually. So that was surprisingly popular considering I don't think anyone saw it when it actually came out in theaters. So anyway, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that thoroughly. Hopefully you did too.
Oh yeah.
So to wrap up, Blade Runner, we both recommend. I'm giving it 3.5. You're giving it 3.5 as well. I cannot recommend Victoria and Abdul, but Brian slightly recommends it, and we both highly recommend Asphalt Jungle. Seek it out. As always, we'd like to thank our wonderful crew and our amazing sponsors. You can go to our website at realfilmsnobs.com. You can listen to us on KMUZ Radio. You can watch us here on CCTV, as well as on Scans TV in Silverton and Corvallis Access Media, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Have a great day and great movies.